Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not yet convinced that you are on your own and that government will not be there for you when you need it the most, and it shouldn't be there for you, we are a nation of free people that must live by the consequences of the decisions that we make. That is why I am such a proponent of preparedness. But if you're not convinced yet and you're still holding out, thinking that if the next major crisis happens, that someone's going to come to your rescue, especially someone that is from the government, I want you to take a look at this. Bear with me here. The state of homelessness in the United States in 2022. The number of homeless in the U.S. is estimated at 552.8 thousand. That's more than 500,000 people in these United States that is homeless. Americans are skipping meals and medications because they cannot afford them. Over the past 12 months, nearly 2 in 5 American households, 40%, receive food or goods from a food bank. 22% for millennials, and about 17%, same amount, stop buying healthier foods, organic or high-priced healthy food items, meaning that people are switching from the foods they normally eat to cheaper foods, and then eventually having to go to food banks to get the food that they need. And that's supposed to be here in the wealthiest nation in the world. Inflation may force 2 in 3 small businesses to close in 2022. 66% of small businesses in the United States may have to close because of inflation. Induced by who? Who writes policies and who spends the money, or who has control of the purse? The government does. So 2 out of 3 small businesses are expected to close. And once they close, I don't believe that they will reopen, ladies and gentlemen. 65% of small businesses say it is very likely that they will permanently close if inflation continues at this current rate. 38% of small businesses facing closure may plan to lay off employees just to stay afloat. So 38% of those small businesses are going to try to keep their door opens, but at the expense of their employees' jobs. Why? Because of inflation, something that is induced 100% by government. In these United States, drug overdose deaths are up 30% year over year. Think about that. We are the most medicated nation in the world, and overdoses are up 30% year over year. And this is from the National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics. So it's not just a number that anyone pulled up from a hat somewhere. 62% of personal bankruptcies in the United States were due to medical expenses. So you know that huge premium that you have to pay for the Affordable Care Act, and then that huge deductible you have to pay as well? It's forcing 62% of personal bankruptcies in the United States. The last one before we get to the main point. 18 million Americans cannot afford needed medications, Gallup finds. And this is from 1 year ago. This is from September of 2021. My question to you is, do you think it's better or worse today, a little over a year later? The U.S. pledges climate reparations to other countries while Americans freeze and become homeless. If you don't have it through your head yet that no one is coming for your rescue, you better think twice. You know, I have to talk about this. I know someone who thinks I'm crazy. He thinks I am nuts for doing what I do, for talking how I talk about how you should be prepared. He thinks that I'm nuts for having an extended pantry where I can feed my family in case something happens where the food is unavailable for whatever reason. It's for whatever reason. It doesn't matter if it's a world war or if it's a recession or if it's a strike, for whatever reason. He thinks I'm crazy for having an extra gas tank fill up for each of my vehicles just in case the pumps shut down. He thinks I'm crazy for keeping some cash at home or in a place that I can get to it quickly, just in case the ATMs go down and the banks shut down for whatever reason. You can pick whatever reason you want. He thinks I'm crazy for having all these solar generators that I love to review, just in case we lose power. He thinks I'm crazy for that. And he also thinks I'm crazy for having a 2.5, 3-year supply of heating oil, which I actually broke down how much I paid for all of my heating oil. I have about a 3-year supply of heating oil, or heating fuel, whatever you want to call it. And I dollar cost averaged into them. 1 year supply, I paid about $1.75 a gallon. The next year supply that I got, I ended up paying about $2.67 a gallon. And then the last batch that I got, I ended up paying $4.41 per gallon. It all averages out to somewhere in the low $3 range, which is considerably lower than what it is today. So he thinks I'm crazy for doing that. He thinks I'm crazy for putting up a little bit of gold and silver. Mainly silver, of course. But he thinks I'm crazy for doing that. And this is a person that is of very well means. He has a ton of money, a 401k. He's got the mortgage, the car payment, all that kind of stuff. And he makes a very good income. Well, he thinks I'm crazy for all that. And I asked him, well, I think you're crazy for having homeowners insurance. And he says, but why? Why do you think I'm crazy? And I said, well, because you're just wasting that money. He said, no, I'm not. I'm not wasting that money. What if something happens to my home? The insurance will cover it. I said, well, what if something happens if the gas station shut down, if the supermarket shuts down? What happens if the banks shut down and you can't get to your digital money? And he said, that's never going to happen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of two things, if not both. That is coming from someone who is scared, who does not want to admit reality and just look around and see what's going on. And or it is coming from someone that still lives in a normalcy biased life. Someone that has all of the means by which he can become prepared, but refuses to do so because, hey, it's never happened here, so it means that it's never going to happen. And those are the kind of people, in my opinion, that when everything does break down and things don't go their way, they'll be looking to government to fix the same problems that government itself has produced. More people than ever are facing dire circumstances, and we're just getting started with this economic disaster. And what is our government doing, ladies and gentlemen? Well, the use of climate policy to soak Americans keep getting worse. And the United Nations Climate Conference in Egypt ended this weekend with an agreement on a new fund to pay reparations to poor countries. Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Do you understand everything that I just talked about? About how we have homeless, about how we have the elderly especially that cannot afford medication, about how we had X number of overdoses and deaths last year because people are in dire straits. During economic downturns, you have a heightened elevation of drug use and alcohol use as well, because people are looking for something to ease the pain. And here we are giving even more money to other nations that have absolutely nothing to do with our well-being. Wealthy countries are going to be setting up a fund to cover climate damage for the least developed countries. This is nothing but a transfer of wealth. Just like I talked on my last video, that the reason why the United States of America, that our citizens have to pay 10, 20, 100 times more for medication that is made from the exact same company and is sold in other countries for a lot less, is because we are transferring our wealth to those countries. So for example, if you buy a vial of insulin here in the United States for $1,000, let's say, I don't know how much insulin is. Let's say it's $1,000 for a vial of insulin, or for a monthly dose of insulin, right? And then you go across the border, either to Canada or to Mexico, and there you can get the exact same thing for $60. But that insulin is made by the exact same company, the exact same pharmaceutical company. What is it? Why are we paying so much more here? Because we are transferring our wealth to those other nations via paying higher prices here so that they can pay lower prices there. This is the exact same thing. They continue to say wealthy countries will now set up a fund to cover climate damage for the least developed countries. but not China or other middle-income nations. This will be financed from a broad donor base and a mosaic of solutions such as international development banks and taxes on aviation, shipping, and fossil fuels, which means that it will be a tax on you, the consumer. Some reports suggest that the U.S. will be on the hook for up to $1 billion. In October, it was reported that the total amount due would be $4.3 trillion. So the next time you see a homeless person on the street, the next time that you read about someone who overdosed, the next time that you read about someone who had to claim bankruptcy because they couldn't afford their medical bills, the next time that you hear that someone passed away because they could not afford the drugs that they needed in order to stay alive, think about this. China is not contributing anything. It's essential to note that out of all of the polluters in the world, China is the worst offender, creating 30% of the world's carbon emissions. Why is China not paying anything when they're the worst polluters? And people don't realize also that most of the pollution that comes from a nation, especially the United States, most of that pollution is done by the military. Like I said, it's all government. Boy, I tell you what, as American people, we have been forsaken by those people that are supposed to be there going to bat for us. So for you, yes, you know who I'm talking to. For you, the one that thinks that I'm crazy for getting prepared and making sure that my family has everything they need, and that instead of having love for money, I would rather just have love for my family and make sure that they'll be protected during hard times. And hard times are here. But when hard times get harder, who are you going to turn to? When you with your own eyes can see that the government is not going to be there for you. It's not there for you now. What makes you think it will be there for you when it gets really bad? Think about that and maybe consider taking a little bit of that money you have, of those millions of dollars that you have. Take a little bit of that and get prepared. You can even hire someone to do it for you. You don't even have to do it by yourself. All right. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have a great day, and I hope that you have a very, very nice Thanksgiving tomorrow. Remember that tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Thanksgiving live stream special at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, so that we can just hang out for a little bit. And let me remind you that this Friday is Black Friday. Now listen, it's not about consumerism, but it is, right? So on Friday, I'm going to be putting out probably about 3 videos, 2 review videos of 2 solar generators that I reviewed that are actually really good, to tell you the truth, so that you can check them out and see if you want to go check out their site on Black Friday. And I'm also going to do a Black Friday video where I'm going to go to all of the sites that I normally visit that has things that I have and see what kind of deals they have going on Black Friday. That way, for those of you, remember, that's for those of you that are in the market for any of those items, can go check them out and maybe save a few bucks. Better get it now instead of waiting 6 months from now when they're going to be twice as expensive. And if there's a good deal that you can take advantage of, that's why I do that video on Black Friday. And I kind of enjoy doing it as well, browsing to the sites and seeing what kind of deals are on. So that will be Friday. This Friday is going to be Black Friday for me. So there will be like 3 videos out on that day. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, on Thursday. And we'll have a good time just hanging out for a few minutes. Have a great day, and God bless every one of you.